Alright, top 5 rogue picks for the KC Cup. Basically the next best 5 decks after the top 5 that we covered in the last video that we went over. So the first deck I want to talk about here is genus. So this is a deck that has a lot of potential. When things go right for it, this deck can do some crazy things. It has all kinds of synchro plays and monsters that can go into. If you decide to run the Dino version of the deck, it gives you all kind of power with the Survival's End card, being able to pop your opponent's board and go in for game. But it does have a few things that hinders this deck, right? So number one is you have a couple different skills that you can use, and they give you, different advantages, right? Flight control is great for the consistency, being able to get whatever TG you need at any time. But if you do that, you're going to be limited in how many extra deck spots you have in your deck. That's one of the big things that really hinders this deck, is there's so many different synchro monsters that you want to run that you just don't have room for all of them. But if you do decide to run the other skill, which gives you the extra TG monsters in your extra deck, right, which does help alleviate that some, then you don't have the consistency that flight control adds. So you definitely have to consider that balance. And then there's also, the Dino package. This particular build that we have listed here is not running the Dinosaur Survival's End package. However, if you do want to run that, it adds a lot of power to the deck, but it can also add some inconsistency. Sometimes you just brick with your hands because of it, and you don't get what you need to in order to get your combos off. This deck also has problems that, a simple Book of Moon or a little interruption like that can stop your play if you're going second and they're able to flip down your tuner or your non-tuner and you're just not able to go into your synchro plays. It can be really easy to shut down this deck's plays if you're going second. But fortunately, this deck does have some versatility in what cards you can run. As you can see, we have the TTH in here. We can run Forbidden Lance or MST. You can run Book of Moon as well, so you can run the base package if you like to in this deck. And again, you have a lot of flexibility with how you want to build the deck, which is good in some ways, but it also means that it's tough finding like the one version of the deck that's really good and going to push forward into the meta game. This deck just has a lot of potential, but it just has a few things that just hold it back from being one of the top decks in the game right now. Still, it's a really solid deck. I think it's going to do well in the KC Cup, especially since people don't have access to side decks like they do in tournaments. So that means people are not going to be side decking as much into like the Necro Valley and DD Crow, stuff like that could really hurt this deck. So I expect that it will do pretty well and take a few spots in that top 100 cut. Alright, next up we have Abyss Actor. So this deck is still sort of the best pendulum deck in the game. It's got crazy consistency between Madonna being able to search, Sky Iris, being able to get whatever pendulum monsters you need to go through your combo. The Rookie is great for that defense, being able to survive once per turn, stops a lot of decks from being able to OTK through you, and then of course it gives that protection when you're able to boost its attack up and just swing over your opponent for game for that 4100 hit. So there's a lot of things that this deck does really well in that sense. You still have all those little extra things that go along with them, like Storm. You have the Archfiend Eccentric, but you do have the thing where you can't really side deck with this deck, which I think will also be a benefit to the in the KC Cup format, right? Best of one, so you don't have to worry about your opponent being able to side deck into those unending nightmares, into those cosmic cyclones. So that may play into a real advantage here for Abyss Actor. Also, it's one of those decks where if you have the Yugi character with Destiny Draw, this particular version has Sealed Tombs as that skill, but you have that benefit of your opponent not knowing what you have if you're going second, right? Your opponent goes first, they don't know what board to go into, they don't know if you have Gaia, if you have this, or if you have Magnet Warrior, so your opponent may not be expecting you to have this. If you show up with Yami Yugi and Destiny Draw, they may think that's another deck, so showing up with this and slamming down the Abyss Actors can definitely be a surprise for your opponent. So you also have, of course, access to the rank 4 toolbox, which I think is also beneficial going into the KC Cup, because it gives you a lot of different weapons to go after various decks you might run into. If you run into Harpie Ladies, you can bring out the Herald or Patriarch. If you run into Melodious, you can bring out the Black Ship of Corn. Run into Fire Kings or some other graveyard reliant deck, you can pull out the Abyss Dweller. So you have a lot of different options in your extra deck in that sense as well, but I think it's going to be a big benefit for Abyss Actor going forward. So I would expect this deck again to be another one of those that's taken quite a few spots in the top 100 and definitely be the #1 pendulum deck going into the KC Cup. Next up, we have Destiny Hero. So this deck's kind of fallen off in the last month or so. It's kind of a shame, but I still like Destiny Hero going forward. It does have a couple good matchups. Being able to search for MST is still really powerful. It may not be beneficial in every matchup, but Clock Tower Destiny, the skill being able to put it out and stopping your opponent from being able to OTK, it can just cause problems, right? Your opponent doesn't want to blow it up, but if they just want to kind of wait for it to shuffle it back in, but then they can't OTK you. But if they pop it, they have to find a way to deal with your Dreadmaster, and it just causes problems for certain decks, right? Some decks can very easily just remove it before it has a chance to go off and can pose difficult matchups, but Destiny Hero still has some good matchups going forward. Just being able to search for MST, taking care of back row decks is really beneficial. Mass Change helping in with that. Of course, we have the standard competitive package, right? MST, Book of Moon, Treacherous Trap Hole. So that's all still here as well. And then, you know, this deck does a good job in being able to grind out those sort of long games. Stratos, you know, every turn, giving you the advantage, being able to slowly, you know, wear down your opponent's resources. But you also have the 4,000 attack point, quick hit through Excalibur, take out your opponent's back row. So, you know, Destiny Hero is one of those decks that I think is still going to see play in the KC Cup. It's not, you know, going to be at the power level that it has been in the last couple months, but I think that, you know, Destiny Hero is still going to do well in this kind of format. And I think that, you know, you'll still see a few appearing here and there in the top 100 when all is said and done after the end of the big weekend coming up. Alright, next up we have Melodious, another deck that's kind of fallen off in the last couple months that was, you know, a lot more popular, you know, just a couple months ago. However, I think this is still a good pick, especially with Magnet Warrior expected to be probably the best deck in the KC Cup and being the best deck in tournaments right now. Melodious has done a really good job against that deck. You know, just has kind of a good matchup. It's really difficult for you know, for Magnets to deal with the fact that all their monsters getting banished from the graveyard, right? They can't bring the Berserkion out with the Melodious Fusion monster banishing everything from the grave. You know, a lot of times their only out is their XYZ monster to killing the Bloom Diva. So Melodious, you know, it's one of those decks where it's a tough call is what you include in your main deck. You know, if you want to go with 30 cards in there and include all your different answers, it feels like sometimes you're a little bit less consistent than you'd like to be. But if you go with like closer to 20 or 25 cards, you don't always have all the answers you need to respond to everything that you might run into in the KC Cup, and especially in a best of one format where you don't have that side deck option. So we'll see how well Melodious is able to do. Again, I think it's a deck that will still take a few cuts in that top 100 though, because it's still, you know, a solid deck that doesn't have too many bad matchups, and it does have a couple good ones, and I think it can still contend, you know, with just about any deck that it goes up against, right? There's not too many decks I think that just completely shut this thing down and it just doesn't have a chance to win against, right? I think it does, you know, fairly well still, and we'll see it do well in the KC Cup, I think, also. Alright, and then last but not least, there's a couple decks that could have taken this last spot. There's quite a few, really. I could have put Burning Abyss here, but I decided to go with Phantom Knight just because I expect a lot of people to be playing it. It's the new deck. Everyone wants to play with the new shiny toy that just came out, and that right now is Phantom Knight. So I expect to see plenty of Phantom Knights. It is a solid deck. Again, there's probably a few other decks that could be in the spot as well. Burning Abyss, you know, is one. I know I'm missing others that could definitely fit into this spot. However, though, again, I expect a lot of people to be playing Phantom Knights this weekend. It's still, you know, got some nice plays to it. Being able to go into, you know, have the Fog Blade set turn 1 with our Phantom strategy skill is really nice. You can get out your Dante, set that along with like a Book of Moon or Tretch to help protect yourself. You can also on turn 2 go into your little Breaksword play, basically get 2 Phantom Knights on the board, go into a rank 3, blow up a card on your opponent's side of the build, bring your monsters back, go into your XYZ Dragon or into your Malevolent Sin. It's just an incredibly powerful play for clearing out your opponent's board and winning games. So Phantom Knights, really strong deck. Been having a lot of fun playing with this one. I'll have a video coming up as soon as we're done with our top 5 series here. After tomorrow, we'll do our top 5 budget decks. We'll do a full-fledged like deck profile on Phantom Knights and their full engine, what they do, what their strategy is. But again, we see that same competitive package that we've seen in so many of the decks. So right, Mystical Space Typhoon, Book of Moon, Treacherous Trap Hole. If your deck can find a way to squeeze those into your lineup while still doing your base combo plays like this one can, you're probably going to find at least some. There's a chance you're going to be able to find some level of success in the metagame, right? A pretty good chance. And Phantom Knights are no exception to that. I feel like they're still missing some plays. I feel like they still need like a better boss monster besides like going into Arc Rebellion Dragon. Like, it's not a turn 1 play, neither is Breaksword. Like, these are not like good turn 1 plays. You know, something like Zen Mains or Dante are like your best turn 1 moves right now, backed up by protection, and that just doesn't feel very good, right? Like, sometimes like you just have to with the Dante to get your Phantom Knight monster in the grave to search, but this deck definitely is still missing something. But even so, I expect it to be very popular, and it's been doing pretty well in tournaments. It's close to this power level up with these other decks, and I expect it to do fairly well and to take, you know, a couple spots in the top 100 again, just like some of the others in this list, just because people are going to play. It's a brand new shiny deck. I expect to see this and Burning Abyss, which is a newer deck as well, to be played very frequently throughout the weekend in this KC Cup, just because of that fact. So anyways, let me know what you guys thought of the video. If there's any other decks featured here that you guys would like me to see do a deck profile on, other than that, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps the channel out, and I'll see you guys later. Have a wonderful rest of the day.